Hello, beautiful bean people. Happy Sunday. Almost 11 o'clock. I like to jump in a little early to say hello to everyone because I usually don't answer a lot of questions when I'm doing a live. Um, Mostly just want the person, my client, to tell their story. We don't do any prep ahead of time other than agreeing to do the story, and I always ask them how their healing has been. Some people I talk to all the time because I'm coaching them, and other people come to me for a protocol and then they disappear, and then they show up with their results and their dedication to their best health. Yes, with the meal prep, I see you. After I get off this live, I did a little meal prep yesterday. I've started to break up my meal prep into 2 days where I'll do maybe a protein on a Saturday and then more veggies and foods that perish a little quicker on Sunday to give them a fresh start for the week. But yeah, I was just saying, I have I'm so thankful that I get to work with so many different people on so many different health journeys. And not everybody's journey is the same. I mean, I can have two people who are dealing with painful periods and the way forward together won't be exactly the same. And I just find it profound and beautiful. And I've learned so much from my clients over the years. It's been incredible to be so expanded by all of you. And I really appreciate it. I love learning. Some people's journey, I'm giving them support, but then they're giving me feedback, and I get to learn from that feedback. And I love it, and I appreciate it so much. The name of the game for me is learning. The more I can learn, the more I can help you. So when I'm not here on Instagram or coaching, I'm constantly learning and seeking out information to help your journey along, as I know most of you are as well, which is really cool. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm excited that you guys are here today. And actually, this is a very different journey than my normal lives. A lot of times my lives will be rebalancing hormones or gut issues. And this one is really driven by health and wellness, but a pain management conversation and a healing conversation more around breaking a bone and a very specific kind of fracture, which my client Erika is going to tell you guys about today. So the Bean Protocol, what I love about an Eating for Health lifestyle is that if you understand how the body interacts with food, you can actually take the same protocol and shift it to very different people with very different outcomes. And to me, that's what I love about food. Can everything be achieved with food if the imbalance is really far? Probably not. There might need to be some additional support from medications or supplements. And I want to put that out there too, because there isn't any shame. I get a lot of people coming to me and kind of going like, do I need to stop everything? And I'm like, no, please don't. Like, let's find the balance and the support with nutrients for your wonderful body. So now I'm just waiting for Erika, who is probably going to join us any minute now. Very excited to share her story. Like I said, she has a very different story than the stories that I bring on here a lot. And it's also, the stories that you guys end up getting and the ones I end up sharing are really because those are my clients who are coming forward and wanting to share their journey. So, but there is a theme, right? Yeah. So what I batch cooked this week, just to give you guys an idea, trying to send a request. Oh, there you are. Okay, let me see if I can send you a request. I wasn't sure. There you are. Okay, so Erika is here. I think I just sent her a request. You would think by now I would have all of this figured out, but it's still a surprise. So yeah, I'm batch cooking. I did a grass-fed brisket yesterday. I've been craving grass-fed beef lately, so I'm giving myself that. And then stir fry today. I'm going to do stir fry vegetables. Oh, there she is. Okay. There you are.
Hi.
Hi.
I couldn't figure out how to join.
Wait, do you have two separate accounts? Because I think I got one from one account and then, okay, that's why I didn't know which account worked.
Yeah, I wanted to, 'cause I'm joined under the pylon fracture site, right?
Yes, you are
Okay.
now. You weren't before. I think you were trying to join under, and that was the one I wasn't um, sure of. So I was like, who is that trying to get into the live?
Who is this?
I have had random people wanting to get into the live before, and I was like, okay. But I did know the pylon fracture was yours. So I was like, okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? It's nice
I'm
to.
doing well.
Good. Good. I'm excited. I'm more nervous than I thought I would be.
Right? It's a funny little thing when you turn that live button on and you realize that, everything is in real time. It's kind of funny.
Right. I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, the first time I did it, because I remember thinking that not everybody was going to resonate with the severity of my story, right? Like my story, I even remember my then boss at the time who I went through it was going like, Unique, nobody can suffer like you can to try to get to where you want to go. Because I was like suffering to try to heal myself naturally and withstanding an incredible amount of pain for it and sleeplessness. And he was like, nobody suffers like that. And I remember thinking as I was really getting my practice going is that I would approach some of my clients and see if they wanted to share their story because I realized that the protocol had this incredible reach where by eating for health and cutting out the things that work against you that you could really create incredible results in so many different areas of a human's health and wellness just by simply supporting the body to create healthier cells and to create healthier hormones and all of these things. So it was like, how do I get this bigger picture out that it's not just about Crohn's disease and it's really not just about gut disease. And you're a great story as well, because I don't even think you came, I was looking back at my notes and I'm like, I didn't even think you came with any hormone imbalances, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your story?
Yeah, thank you. I really feel that. What you were just saying, it reminded me of when I learned about the word adaptogen.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept very broadly communicated was it the substance goes wherever you need it to and
Mm-hmm.
helps support you wherever you need it. And that's exactly what the bean protocol does, right?
That was not my experience with adaptogens. I am what they call, what is it when somebody reacts to something the opposite way that it's supposed to be? It is, the word I'm looking for is, oh gosh, it's such a specific word because when I take ashwagandha, I actually get panic attacks.
Yeah. And I'm very similar. I'm very sensitive to
Yeah,
adaptogen, but I'm thinking the bean protocol is actually the ultimate, like,
adapted.
yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
I get that. But as soon as you said that, I was like, I went back to the panic attacks. I was like, oh God, no adaptogens for me. But
right.
yes, yeah, I get what you're saying.
My name's Erica, and I, I have such a long healing journey because I wanted to connect with you because I'd never seen another person who healed Crohn's and colitis naturally, and I, through my life, had dealt with gut issues and just kind of intuitively like bumped against this wall and tried this direction and bumped up against this thing and I just wanted to connect and do like a longevity plan with you. So we connected and I broke my leg. And I started incorporating more beans into my diet in probably because I'd been bean heavy. I went like zero carbs and grain for a long time, which really helped me to heal the gut issues I came from. And I found this great farm stand with a buffet, and they had a bean salad, and all the narrative of like beans make you fart, I couldn't even hear that. I was like, I need that bean salad, and I got a big salad every day and ate it for lunch and then finished it for dinner, and it was huge. It was like a pound and a half of food, and I felt better than I ever had in my life. And then I came across, because I'm always looking for new information, come across the narrative of like, well, beans are complex and they're too much protein and carb for your body to really digest, and it creates issues and residue in your intestines. And so I was like, all right, no beans, that's cool. Um, and you know, shifted more plant-based, and it was like teetering on the edge, just feeling hypersensitive and all of that. And so my lifestyle, I very athletic. I've been a ski bum for most winters of my life, and then got into hot yoga. I actually opened a hot yoga studio, and so I've been teaching and practicing quite a bit. In 2020, I signed a lease to open a hot yoga studio, and then 2 weeks later, I snapped my leg off. I have a pylon fracture, which is your tibia and fibula both completely break. And mine was pretty bad. I fell about 15 feet from a rope swing in the woods. And I've swung on that swing 1,000 times. Like, get out to the apex of the swing and my foot slips out of the loop, and I Indiana Jonesed it for a moment. I'm holding on and I'm thinking, just hold on. And it slipped out of my hands, and I just pin dropped down, and my leg just shaped like a hockey stick. And it was really, you know, it was really rough.
What a
But
shock. What a shock. I mean, part of you probably anticipated that it was coming because you know, you're holding on, right? And how long can you hold on? And so part of
so I heard a pop, and I knew, oh yeah, it's definitely broken. But I had been beaning for months before that. And so I went on that hike, and I had like a little fat snack in the car. I made like a nut salad. It was delicious. And I was so excited to get back to eat my nut snack. And I'm sitting there waiting for the EMTs to arrive, thinking, I should have just brought that snack with me. And I also thought, like, well, I guess the rest of this weekend's not going to go the way I thought it would.
Can I ask you a question? In that moment, I haven't had, knock on wood, I haven't broken any bones, but I've been in, you know, car accidents, and I've sliced open my thigh with a surfboard thin, and what I found, the adrenaline, not what I call kind of cowboy adrenaline, which is like everyday life adrenaline and coffee and stuff like that, but like the moment when something like that happens, did you feel total clarity? Like, what was the experience for you? I'm really curious.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think from hot yoga practice and from the certain lineage I'm trained in is more of a monastic order. And so it's very breath centered and very meditative. And I did kind of shift into, I mean, I wasn't freaking out. It was definitely painful. I was sitting on a hill, and I tried to move my leg, and it wasn't moving. It felt like shards of pottery inside of a rubber bag. It was not good. And so I just started to deepen my exhale, because from what I know, your breath begins at the bottom of your exhale. And I know that my body was experiencing like a cortisol and adrenaline rush. And so to clear that, I was just deepening my exhale, and my body started to shake, and I started to shiver. Like my jaw was chattering like it was, you know, 15 degrees out. And yeah, I just, I had my phone with me, but I didn't look at my phone. It was kind of the golden hour, and I was in the most beautiful part of the woods on Martha's Vineyard. I'm on a little island off the coast of Massachusetts. And so I was looking up at the branches of the beech trees and just seeing how the light was touching them and kind of gilding the edges against the blue sky, and just breathing very deeply. And I felt just held kind of by the woods, and held by I guess the safety that, or the security that I've had to cultivate for myself, you know. I really didn't feel panicked. And with all of the activities that I've done my whole life, I've always been a little not a risk taker, but in retrospect, I see that I was going for that thrill, right? And so it was, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have caught up with me, but I've come out unscathed from so many things. So it would make sense that it's just this simple, innocent, really, I associate it with kids, you know. Sometimes there was like a tire on the swing, so you swing out over this big hill, and come back. And so of course it's this thing that I'm so familiar with, that I've done, you know, thousands of times, that it was just that one moment of not paying attention, and your foot slips out, and it's like, well, it's not like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It was like, oh, well, you know.
Now, you had started the Bean Protocol kind of loosely on your own before you and I kind of like honed it in for what you wanted to achieve. So from the moment that you were sitting there to the time that the EMT picked you up, like what was what were you doing? Because I remember you wrote to me and you're like, oh, Unique, I was doing the Bean Protocol in the hospital. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. So you know, I've always said that you'd have to break my leg to get me to walk into a hospital. Um, and
Okay, note to all of those watching, don't say stuff like that.
yeah, so before I was like really doing the Bean Protocol, I was trying to incorporate more beans, but because I had been coming from like a plant-based approach, beans felt really heavy and it scared me. I didn't want to feel bulky. I'm naturally like very muscular and very like dense and very strong. And so I just felt like apprehension about that. And so all of your presence and all of these healing stories really kind of opened me up to be like, oh, and Lacey Phillips, her story really opened me up to be like, oh, your body's going to figure it out. Like whatever happens, it's not this moment to moment, you know, oh my God, beans are making me what, fill in the blank, you know, it's just, it's going to be like a balancing act. So I was working with that. And I was committed to 3 bean snacks basically, and fat snacks, which I had really started to embrace, and just that structure and thinking helped me. So when I got to the hospital, usually with this sort of fracture, they make you wait 2 weeks before you have surgery. But there was so little inflammation and swelling that they did surgery the next day. So they pulled me out of the woods and took me to the hospital here, and then flew me to Boston, and that night, and then the next morning I had surgery. So that was the first thing that was like, yeah, maybe I'm just special, maybe. You know. And the more I learn about this injury, because I did create a pylon fracture account specifically to put another narrative out, because the first thing you do when you get any diagnosis, right, is Google it. Wikipedia will tell you that pylon fractures are associated with complications and negative outcomes. And that was like, oh, damn. And the general narrative is very, it's doom and gloom. It's really scary. So before my surgery in Boston, the surgeon came in and he said, you did a really good job breaking your leg, and I'm going to do the best I can. But, you know, you should start to understand that your life's never going to be the same. You know, you're running, and the things you're used to doing, you probably won't do those things. He said, you're going to have arthritis for the rest of your life. This is going to be your bad leg. He had a bunch of medical students around him, and I was a little bit in a haze because that night was pretty painful. And I just said, with all due respect, Dr. Smith, that's not my story, and I'm gonna see what happens. I'm gonna stay curious, because I'm not sure that you've ever met anybody like me. Not to fluff myself up, but just to break out of all that stodgy, you know.
You know what? That's pretty great confidence, because in my journey, I rejected identifying with Crohn's. I rejected that it was who I was for the rest of my life, even though they wanted to pin it on me. I rejected it, but not from the same place of confidence that you are, which I love, because I was doing it going, I don't know if there's something out there, but I feel like there is. And I feel like I don't need to settle for the rest of my life. This is who I am. Like, I felt like if I needed to, I would, but I felt like I was gonna battle that idea for as long as I could. And it sounded like you went into it going, oh no, I'm a warrior and I'm going to create a different narrative, which I really appreciate. That's awesome.
Well, I received that, and I also relate to you completely because there's always a part of me that's scared. Like,
Yeah.
and I think what comes to mind for me is that you know, courage doesn't feel courageous. It actually feels like fear. And there is a bit of not false bravado, but I try to put the intention out there, and then let's hope for the best, right? Because I'm gonna do the best I can. So also an aside is that I was so hesitant to accept any pain medicine. And I know that just sounds totally bonkers because only my skin was creating an attachment between my foot and the lower half of my leg. And I was so nervous about that. And it was actually kind of like a fear and a good reason not to get injured or sick was like, well, I don't want to go into the hospital system and just be pumped full of antibiotics and drugs and things. But when I got there and before they flew me to Boston, they had to set my leg, so they had to pull on it. And I overheard out of the corner of my ear one EMT person say to another doctor person, ketamine, and the guy goes, yeah. And I said, excuse me, um, I I don't want to take ketamine because I know that it's used therapeutically. I know that it's used for a lot of infants and surgery and stuff, but I know that it's a dissociative and that it has like a psychedelic effect as it leaves your body. And I just, you know, I'm open to plant medicine, but I don't want it in that context in a hospital in, you know, with a broken leg and stuff like that. And so, I mean, they gave me something else. And what started to give me confidence, and this is when I wrote to you, was unique. I'm in the hospital. I have to take these drugs. I've always been afraid of taking drugs. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to feed my body something that it will not really have a choice on becoming dependent on. But I thought about the beans and I was like, my liver's clearing all of this. Like I didn't eat for a few days in the hospital. They couldn't understand why. They kept suggesting like, oh, we have a great burger. There's like the best chocolate cake you've ever had. They kept trying to give me, I mean, it was well-meaning, but there was
But
one
it's well-meaning, but if sugar feeds imbalance and inflammation, and insulin spikes in your body feeds inflammation, it's kind of like it's a total departure from what you should be doing, right? I'm like, wait a minute, like, no.
yeah. I couldn't drink enough water. I couldn't drink enough water. And they, for whatever reason, it was pre-COVID because it was right after March 1st, 2020. But something about their hospital protocol had changed. So they were only giving out these little like bullet Poland Spring waters. So I would drink like 8 of them. And the nurse came in and they're, you know, bless them because they're all very overworked and understaffed. But I think she got sick of emptying my bedpan because I was peeing so much. And she said, I'm not allowed to tell you this, but I'm going to say you can't drink any more water. And I said, well, I have to. I'm sorry. And she said, you can have something else. She said, you can have Gatorade. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I would prefer not to have Gatorade. She said, juice. And I said, well, like ocean spray juice? And I said, that's way too much sugar. She said, diet juice. So it's just, they're so well-meaning, but there's just a lack of understanding of the whole picture. And I don't see inflammation, general inflammation, addressed very often in the narrative. And with something like healing a bone fracture, I mean, people ask me all the time on this pylon fracture account, you know, what do you eat every day? and it's like I'm going to give them the magic recipe, right? And I just try to respectfully say, like, you know, the biggest difference in the world will be cutting out sugar, cutting out caffeine, cutting out alcohol, because it's a bummer to break your leg. And most people who get the kind of injury that I have, it comes from a high impact. So there's a lot of rock climbers who have this injury, a lot of people on motorcycles, and things of that nature, skiing, and usually action sports, and people who are
Adrenaline junkies.
right.
Adrenaline junkies. You know what's interesting is because inflammation gets a bad rap, but inflammation serves such an important kind of part of the healing process in our body as well. And I think that that's something that I also want to put out there, because in inflammation caused by eating too much sugar or taking in too many toxins, or that kind of general inflammation is not great for us. But in a case like yours where you broke your bone, your body is getting to work to bring energy and blood flow and healing to the area, and it's such an important part of it. But also taking the precautions you did to not bring extra unneeded inflammation into the body while you were healing. It's super smart. And the fact that you reached out to me being like, yo, being protocol in the hospital, need help. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So my order in the hospital, there was a Whole Foods just a block away from the hospital. And my mom came up and she brought me a big chocolate bar. She was like, here, I got you your favorite 90% dark chocolate. And I was like, thank you so much. And will you please go to Whole Foods and get me organic beans, please? And just get me like a pint of cold pressed organic olive oil. And that was my beans and fats. And that's when I started to eat after surgery. It was also kind of scary that they don't have a problem in the hospital if you don't poop for like 4 days. They're like, it's not a problem. It's not.
Well, because if you're going in and they're putting you under and they're doing a surgery, they're giving you antibiotics, they're giving you pain medication, and that pain medication is going to cause you to be constipated. Like, they just know that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So in the hospital, that's what I was doing. I was doing black beans. She got the ones out of the carton. I wasn't worried about them. I wasn't.
Nope. No, actually, that's a perfect option because you don't need a can opener. All you have to do is open that box and away you go.
Box by the bedside, couple of tablespoons of beans. I practice my breath work and the meditation. I also do Vedic meditation. So
did you do beans and the fat together to help your constipation, and then beans separately to help move out the bile? I'm trying to remember what we talked about. Okay, tell me.
Well, what we talked about, the main takeaways that I got from our conversation was the importance of protein. It was, but this was not related to healing the fracture. In the hospital, I didn't mix the beans and fats. I just would take like a shot of olive oil with sea salt in it. And then, because I didn't have a huge appetite, but I wanted to give my liver what it needed to really clear.
Well, the fat would have helped with the pain management because it would encourage your body to make corticosteroids, right? Mm-hmm. So the fat would have helped with that to bring down the pain and inflammation. And then the beans away from that would help the body clear the toxins from your surgery and all that stuff. So the two together would have been amazing. And I'm curious, did you get constipated with all that going on?
Yeah, it was like 3 days. It was like 3 days after the surgery. And I didn't eat for those 3 days. And I think it was the third day after the surgery. And then they were telling me, well, you can't go home unless you eat something. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, there was an issue with pain. They were just pumping me full of opiates. And for whatever reason, my body wasn't responding with any type of pain relief. They'd come in and they'd give me an injection of Dilaudid, I think it was, and I would lose consciousness. I'd like fall asleep and nod off for about an hour, and then I'd wake up and be in the most excruciating pain. again. And it wasn't until the physical therapist came in, she saw me and she said, this is not normal. You should not be in this much pain. She talked to my doctor and they switched things around, and it was something to deal with nerve pain, that actually helped me. But generally my inflammation was great. My whole body felt great. It was just my leg that was broken. And having to pause and really see, like, I don't think we realize how much momentum our lives have, how we're kind of at this crest of a wave that's pushed forward by, all the things we're called to do and all the commitments we make. And when you just hit like a hard stop, the opportunity to reflect and really see, how I'm living my life was really powerful. It was a lot to digest. And coming from an Ayurvedic background, I've always understood that your digestion on a physical level mirrors your digestion on a psycho-emotional level, on a spiritual level. So to absorb the nutritive content of your experiences, your digestion needs to be moving. And I had a lot of time and space to really reflect on and be with that. I did. So the healing journey, I mean, it was 3 months of not walking and being really hard stop on my caffeine. And well, caffeine comes from dark chocolate for me. And definitely no kombuchas or anything like that. And a lot of bone broth. I have a friend who has a organic poultry farm, and they brought me bone broth, and I would just bean and broth, and it was hilarious. My aunt and my mom, they were coming over to take care of me. They could not believe how much almond butter I was eating. I probably ate a jar of almond butter every 2 to 3 days with carrots.
Did you notice, like, what was, so you got out of the hospital, you were beaning, you were bone brothing, you were eating, and we did talk about protein to help with accelerate healing. But how did you feel? Like, tell us how you were feeling.
How I was feeling when I got home?
Yeah.
My physical body?
Yeah, your entire, physical, emotional, like how is that coming back home again?
Yeah, I felt much better than I thought I would. And as far as modifying like my movement practice, because I've always thought, oh God, I need a lot of movement. It's just the kind of person I am. I need to, do vinyasa practice and all of that, and just softening into rest and softening into doing what feels really good rather than what I think I should be doing, was really powerful. And yeah, I have videos on my pylon fracture site of just, kind of rolling around on my back, doing a shoulder stand. And
Like,
I had this little walker thing. I inherited it from my grandmother, but it had like squeezy handles so you could stop. So that I was kind of mobile and like zipping around my apartment and stuff. And yeah, I'd make tea and I'd put my leg up on the counter and I'd make my tea, mostly just nettles and things to support my minerals that I was needing. And yeah, I just listened to an interesting interview with Kimberly Ann Johnson, who does the Maga Mama podcast, Birth and Death and Trauma. She was talking about the nervous system and how our kind of trauma accumulates through the actions we're not able to take. So we get stressed out or we are in fear, and because we can't run or fight, is why we kind of accumulate a nervous response or the residue that follows us around. And being home after the fracture, my mind was pretty clear, but every time I'd lay down in bed to try to sleep, my heart would just start pounding. And it felt like I was having these panic attacks. And I was just listening to that interview the other day, and she mentioned how surgeries can have this effect because although you're under anesthesia, your physical body is still registering this invasion, you know? And it's like an animal. It doesn't, you can't explain to it like, oh, this is, you know, this is, you need this. This is really going to help in the long run. It's just like, help, you know, like you're cutting me open. There's a lot of stuff going on. And so I have so much compassion for me a year and a half ago when I was moving through that, because I think that was one of the heavier aspects of dealing. Physically, I'm like, I'll just, you know, hop around on one leg. Emotionally, and, you know, dealing with that aspect was, it was definitely
And
heavy.
and also going through the detox of it too, you know, so you're not just detoxing the chemicals, but you're also and the medication, you're detoxing the adrenaline, and your body went from, you know, 100 and then slowly is coming back down to zero to kind of like a baseline. So that whole experience is trauma, right? It's a whole trauma experience. So at a very high level, which is why I think of fight or flight in a state like that is very different than kind of like this baseline junkie fight or flight that a lot of people live in every single day via stress or um, caffeine or whatever. I remember when I put a fin through my leg and it literally sliced open my thigh so you could see the bone. And because it just like two sides of the same thing just kind of opened up. And the adrenaline that I felt was so clear and so conscious and so present. Like I had never been present before. It's just such a profound experience to me, one that I hope to never have again. But really, like the human body to me is profound. So everything you're describing to me is like also beyond the trauma of surgery, well, breaking the leg and then the surgery to reset it, and then the chemicals. It's like it's a big detox that you're coming down on the other side from. Um, how was healing after, and how do you feel like the Bean Protocol helps support in that process? What was happening there? And like, did your healing happen pretty quick? Were you able to start PT? Like, what happened after?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you. Also, I just want to mention that I had 3 metal plates and 13 screws put into my leg because most of the tibia, which is the larger bone there, was just like dust, and the fibula was definitely shattered, and so that was a really weird feeling because I feel very sensitive in my body, and it's interesting how aware and how protective of my internal organism I had been in the years leading up to my fracture, but how I'm not going to say reckless, but I'm going to say that my actual physical safety was less of a priority. And now I feel like a lot more balanced in those aspects and a lot more aware of that.
Was that your first major accident ever? Like, was that it? Was that moment for you of how kind of sacred the body is and how important it is to enjoy your life, but maybe not put it in the line of danger?
Yeah, I've definitely broken other bones, but they were bones that I could kind of ignore
Mm.
and just deal with.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, this is definitely the only injury I've ever had where I wasn't making decisions. It was non-negotiable. There was absolutely no way that I could avoid going to the hospital or having surgery or, you know, taking whatever I needed to take for the time um, that I had to take it. But yeah, I took the medications for about a week after I was in the hospital, and then I just wanted to get off of them and get it out of my system as soon as possible because it seems important to feel pain. And I'm not trying to, I'm not advocating for anyone to just badass their way through something that is unbearable. And also, I think that it seems really important to feel what you need to feel because it informs your body how to respond and how to meet the need of the time. Um, so I didn't walk for about 3 months, and PT came, but because of my movement practice, um, they really, my first like out of my house PT experience, they just discharged me immediately. Because I was doing what I could in terms of like, just for example, like the sun salutations, I was doing them, but I just kept my left leg off the ground, and I would do just a three-legged vinyasa or jump back to my right foot. And I'm lucky because I have the upper body strength for that, because I've been practicing for so long, and just taking things very slowly and counting like, all right, even if my movement is inhale, reach my arms over my head, exhale, fold forward in a chair, that's still yoga. That's still vinyasa, and um, uh, it's still creating the same health benefits. I did a lot of visualization. I had these fantasies about pointing my toes of my broken leg and like digging my toes of that foot into the sand. And because I couldn't move my leg at all. But as far as PT goes, I was really leaning into like the Joe Dispenza work, where he talks about people practicing piano chords in their mind and then building the same neural circuitry. It was very comforting and really satisfying. It felt really indulgent to like feel my body moving. And I would take crutch walks through the little wood paths behind my house, and I would try to imagine what it would feel like for my foot to take a step on my injured leg, even when it was still in a cast and stuff. Everything went pretty quickly. It was hard to learn how to walk again. I kept thinking, oh, just give me the go ahead and I'll be off and running. But my leg forgot how to be a leg completely. Like, it thought it was a bird bath. It thought that it was like just a concrete pylon or something. So that took a little bit of time. And I had the surgery March 1st, and I was completely off my crutches on July 1st.
Are those plates and screws things that you ultimately take out, or do they stay in there forever?
Well, they told me they'd be in there forever. And then I actually had them removed at the end of June this past summer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I was like, I don't need them. All the bones grew back perfectly. One of the big risks for this type of injury is infection, is bone infection, is skin infection. People have amputations even when their bones heal perfectly. Sometimes the type of infection that happens, it's just Guru Jagat was an incredible Kundalini yoga teacher, and she passed away from complications from a lower extremity injury. And I just I'm very lucky. I had zero complications, and I really, we could ponder why. And I have to say, the beans and the inflammation and the calm and the grounded confidence that comes from something so simple and nourishing, and really meeting the most basic needs consistently, it just laid the foundation of my practice. When you don't have all the options to go out and run around and do all the things that you normally do in a day, it's like everything gets very simple. It's like, gonna brush my teeth now. Okay, what am I
So
gonna
you were practicing yoga pretty quickly afterwards, and one-legged yoga. Did you ever bump your leg, or did you ever worry about bumping your leg?
No, the only kind of questionable thing that happened was I was crutching in the grocery store, and you know how they have the little sprayers sometimes that mist the vegetables? There was some water on the floor. And my crutch slipped out. And so I put weight down on the broken leg, and I was a little nervous about it, but I was like, what happened. Let's see how it goes. They'll take an x-ray. We'll deal with whatever happens. And I've been more aware of fear and the stories that my mind tends to spin around them, because uh, my brain chemistry, I know, and my stress chemistry in my body will affect my body's ability to deal with whatever's going on. And being
You
sorry.
you have practice Vedic meditation as well, right? That's my practice. That's your,
Mhm.
yeah. I think all of that stuff, and I wish I would have had that when I was going through my journey. I was using other meditation tapes
Mhm.
that I had three bosses, but one of my other bosses gave me guided meditation tapes that I would listen to when I was in pain, or I was in pain all the time. So I was listening to it. Actually, I listened to it so much that I don't even need the tape anymore. I can actually run the whole program. And it's like a 90-minute program.
Yeah.
Um, but it was amazing to me how meditation, um, even though I wasn't sleeping, I was maybe sleeping 2 hours a night sleeping. And it was amazing to me how those meditation tapes putting you in a kind of more transcendental state was so healing. And I don't know if you ended up practicing in that time when you were healing, but it's such an, because I think when you're unwell, they say that you can practice all the time. Because I think Vedic meditation, it's 20 minutes twice a day, but when you're unwell, you can practice all the time. And I think back and I go, that would have been such an incredible benefit had I known about it and done it then, because there is no greater grounding, I feel like, than having a great practice like that.
Yeah, I think the relationship to the inner space or the big self um, is it's I find it really comforting, and it gives me more trust and surrender in my body. I think most of my confidence in healing comes from a certainty knowing that my body is always working towards homeostasis.
Mhm.
So trusting that, and that my job is to create the conditions for it to thrive and be vital and flow, has really given me, uh, it's any kind of fear or worry around it kind of dissolves in that space when you practice Vedic meditation. Um, you just kind of dissolve yourself into being. And that in itself, I think, takes whatever mind stuff is in the way of your body doing what it needs to do to either rest or regrow bone. Um,
Isn't that amazing that because I do work with people with osteopenia and arthritis and all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing to see how when you stop, you know, pulling minerals from the body all the time, and the body actually can use the minerals and it doesn't need to steal from the bones to buffer, your blood and all of the stuff, that it's like your bones can actually regrow. And
mm,
and it is amazing how most things in the human body can regrow. Like the fact that the liver can come back from so much damage. And when I think about this, to me, having a body and being in a body is such a spiritual experience just in itself, because it is profound, the incredible orchestra of things that happen just to keep up, just for this to happen right here, for us to be talking. How many things have to be happening all at the same time? Um, is pretty profound. The human body is. I am incredibly in love with the human body. I think it's such an amazing. It's profound, and the fact that we can come back and grow new bone, and skin can regrow, and all of these things, and hair, like we can, even if I lost hair in the process of being sick, and once I got healthy, all of those follicles were able to bring hair back and sprout new hair. And you're just like, oh, those follicles don't go away. It's just whether we're giving them the support they need to grow. And it really comes down to that, which is, are you giving your body the support it needs to grow and to
mhm.
turn over cells and to replace a damaged cell with a healthy cell? And or are you continuing to damage cells? And if you are, is it worth it? And that's something that I constantly come back to. It's like I get a lot of people on the Beam protocol going, oh, I felt so good, but then and now I don't feel good anymore. And I'm like, is it worth it? And the answer is usually no. But
Mhm.
it's still such an interesting deviation that we do something that feels good, and then we'll go back to things that don't feel good or don't really support our best health. And I think it's only because that the perception of life is so long versus
Yeah.
when you're in pain, life is very short. Like it's humbling. Pain is humbling, I think.
Yeah, I feel really grateful for having this kind of instant accountability. And I think we all have it to a degree, but with the healing ankle and the joint on my healing leg, if if I have ice cream or something, the very next day I wake up and it's painful, it's a little sore to take a step. Um, so that's
Whoa,
yeah.
really?
Mhm.
That, and you know what? I've heard that from other clients that I work with who have arthritis or something. They're like, oh, I'll be feeling so good that I'll decide to have X, and then whoa, the inflammation in
Mhm.
that area. And to me, that's profound feedback.
Yeah.
That that is like,
Yeah, it's instant. And so it's still a choice. It's still a commitment I make moment to moment to make choices that support my vitality. And also it's just it's a no-brainer. It's like why would I choose to what excuses could I make to, I don't drink at all anymore, and I still have these romantic ideas of like, oh, having some food and some wine, and it's like, well, if I'm walking around, having soreness in my joint just walking, is it worth it? Or no, I'd rather have that freedom.
yeah, I think also, the first half of my life, I didn't recognize that. I call it the Superman years when we're young and we're just Superman.
Yeah.
It's like you hurt yourself and you get better, and you have a stomach ache and you get better. And so the Superman years doesn't lend itself to, oh, I should take care of my body. So, and then in my 30s, when I had the, health garage sale where the wheels were falling off and the hood was up and the steam was coming out, and to suddenly realize that this body that I had always treated with kind of a second thought had the capacity to totally take me to my knees and um, just take me down to size. To be like, it didn't matter how healthy my brain was. If my body wasn't functioning properly, then the game was over. It was like there was no pleasure, there was only pain. And now when I make choices, and I weigh out the options, I always choose to support my body. I'm like, nope,
Mhm.
no. Once you know. And I challenged it a lot, with the idea of like, oh, I had the ice cream, and then the next day the ankle hurt. I would challenge it. And then every single time my body went, nope, nope, nope. And I finally got to a point where it was like, I don't even challenge it anymore. It's not,
I
there's no greater pleasure than waking up and feeling great. There's no greater pleasure than going to sleep and feeling good. And even if I don't sleep well, which happens, I get 4 hours of broken sleep. My body is in such a great place that I wake up, my cortisol rises, and I'm ready for the day, even if I only got 4 hours. And I'm
Mhm.
always like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, that's amazing that my body just buffered for that whole poor night of sleep, and I'm totally fine, and I didn't wake up and I didn't drink coffee and I didn't do all of these things to prop myself up because I've invested so much health into my body that it's got the ability to just go, okay, we got this day, there's no problem here.
Yeah. A couple of things on that I'd love to share is that I love how you unpack shame from the process of kind of testing your body and experimenting. Well, like, can I have this matcha? Can I have this dark chocolate or whatever it is, whatever the weapon of choice is. I love that it's an experiment, that you're experimenting and that um, your mistakes or your experiences are yours to learn from in your own time, and it takes the time it takes to really uh, run into the fire and come to a point where you just don't choose that anymore.
Yeah, it's the concept of know better, do better, right? Is
Mhm.
like when we have shame, we stop learning, because learning, it's such an all-encompassing feeling that we almost rebel against shame in a way. We rebel and then we feel shame, and we rebel and then we feel shame. And to me, if we're curious and observant, we can learn without having to fall into that trap of shame.
Mhm.
To me, I didn't want to feel ashamed. I wanted to learn. And it was like, oh, my personal body cannot handle this.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you're a human that has healed your body, I think it's really hard to mess around with stuff if your body is not healed, because then your body's always at this deficit trying to catch up. So I don't usually, unless there's emotional triggers there, I don't usually suggest a 90-10 off the bat. But if there's a history of disordered eating, I'll be like, let's try a gentler approach. Let's open this up so that you can actually do the protocol and begin the healing process. But for most people who don't have any triggers in that area where you can go all in, I always recommend going all in before you start experimenting, because then you have this baseline of health from which you experiment. And then if your body goes, mm-mm, you have the opportunity to go, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Maybe it's not. You know, for me, when I did those experiments, I was able to learn because I removed the element of shame from it, of like, I can only learn if I'm present and available to it. If I put shame into the process, which can happen and that's fine too, I just found that I didn't learn as well. I was like, I felt more rebellious, you know, it felt more like somebody was trying to parent me, and then I'd feel bad, and then I would go back and do it again, versus, oh, I'm going to be totally present to this whole process. And then I'm going to see how my body feels. And if my body is not into it, I'm going to start taking note. And
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to bring awareness to it so that when presented with that, whether it's in a social situation, I have the opportunity to go, does this serve me? Am I going to choose it even though it doesn't serve me? And that's a choice as well. But what I find these days is most of the time I'm like, no, it doesn't serve me. I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
becomes unemotional, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely, the pendulum swings less, you know, way far out. You start to, when you remove the shame, it's just this little, and then once you hit a new normal and your baseline is feeling really awesome, um, it's like brushing your teeth. It's like, why would you go? Well, you can skip brushing your teeth, but you don't want to do that 2 days in a row, you know?
It's a little, also the other, you said something that triggered this thought in me of like, you know, at first it becomes about healing almost feels restrictive, right? Like at first when you're healing, like you said, you were rolling around trying to like release your normal energy sources and stuff like that. And I think in healing, once you're in a place where you're feeling really good, is you have the capacity to decide and choose. And I think it's the choicelessness, sometimes in the healing process, that feels so um, activating, you know, that sense of like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this, I have to do this, I have to go through this process to heal.
Yeah.
um, so it's the whole for anybody who's gone through the process of healing something major, I'm sure they can relate to this sense of like, you go kind of through this life and death of yourself, and or who you used to be, or a reevaluation of, or who you used to be that got you where you were. I don't know, was that part of your experience?
Yeah, well, I could see more clearly how I used to kind of shame myself into doing what seemed like the better idea. And there was just such a, I mean, yeah, I'll probably get teary-eyed if we go deep into it. Um, but the amount of surrender it took for me to immobilize myself, just kind of softened my heart. And although, you know, I feel really good about where I was at before my injury, um, my yoga practice, everything I approach, um, in from the perspective of how can I move through this with an open heart? You know, how can I feed myself with an open heart so I'm not, you know, it's not like you did. I say this when I teach, is that your pain isn't like a punishment. It's not, you know, what you get for doing the wrong thing, and you don't know until you know. And so coming from an open heart and kind of supporting my body to thrive, supporting my heart in thriving, it's just a completely different angle from where I was before, which was more just kind of like headstrong and push through and go, go, go. Um, yeah. I love your sharing though with I love how you've been sharing more of the emotional aspect of healing, of the spiritual aspect of healing, and all of that. And I,
Thank
sorry,
I said thank you. Yeah, I'm
it's
glad it
more
resonates.
It's very vulnerable. It's powerful. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my mom, she she already had breast cancer and then was diagnosed with breast cancer again in the summer of 2020. And I said, Mom, beans, like beans. And she had stage 3 inflammatory breast cancer. It was really bad prognosis. And she was given the diagnosis and had about 3 weeks to kind of prepare to go up to stay for a, I don't know if it was going to be weeks or months, but up in a cancer suite in Boston to have chemo and all of that. And so for this 3 weeks, she dials it way down. She sits on her porch in the morning. She looks at the birds. She does her readings and her prayers and meditation. And I just shifted into gear and I made her a big batch of bean salad and I, cooked her some chicken breast and I got her the breakfast greens situation. And I'm saying, here's, my mom's very little. She's very light. She's like a little bird. And I was like, ice cream is maybe not the best way to keep weight on, Mom. I know that you really like it. You're Italian, why don't you start taking shots of olive oil? So she's doing these shots of olive oil basically on a really strict bean protocol. And she went to Boston with her little bag, to very fearful, but kind of surrendered in what was going on. I mean, it's breast cancer round 2. So it was like, well, she gave it up and it was gone. Her breast cancer wasn't there anymore.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing on the scans. Nothing. There was a mass. It was swollen. It was awful. She was terrified and it went away. And she's been beaning ever since. I called her this morning and I told her I was going to walk. I told her I was going to talk to you on the live and I was trying to explain, you press on the profile picture and you'll see us and we'll be talking. And she's just incredible. And, with my leg also, who's to say it's the beans? And also they certainly haven't hurt in creating these serious, I would not believe. I've always wanted to believe in spontaneous remission and healing and things. I've always wanted to, but would I actually believe it if it didn't happen right in front of my eyes, or if I didn't have an injury that was basically taking away everything that, if I hadn't gotten this horrible, it's like a curse where when your health is on the line, it's so much freedom to lose, right? If I hadn't seen to believe, I wouldn't believe. And now I can hold that as a truth, as and it's a testament to how simple it is. It's not, about the right adaptogenic things. It's like, we're just scrambling to try to heal ourselves, and that's well intentioned, and also it's just so simple. It's so simple and it doesn't have to be fancy. I remember buying Karen's first cookbook, the Bean Queen's cookbook, and it's like organic or not, and it's like take a can of the green chilies and throw them in the thing and mix a jar of this sauce. And it was just coming from a different time before we got so foodie, so farm to table-y with everything, and it was still totally effective.
Yeah, it's, to me, the organic, whether it's frozen, whether it's fresh, organic just means that you're not taking excess chemicals in. There's always going to be stuff in the land, in the air. To me, it's like, take less in. I think we have an overload of toxins and things that we really can do nothing about. So to that, I surrender. But what I choose to put in is always going to be as little chemicals as possible. That's just kind of like before my illness and after my illness, very different person, dedicated wise. It's like, can I eat a meal and it not be organic? Of course I can. Like, I don't get super nutty about it, but I cook at home a lot just because I want to know that I'm and also I live in LA, so I'm breathing in chemicals and toxins all the time. And, but I know if I support my body, that my body has the tools it needs to support me back. And I think that's the most profound. Again, I have so much reverence for the human body. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mentioned the organic thing just because it meets you wherever you're at, you know?
yeah,
If
yeah.
you're into organic, that's something that I embraced as my health journey, as I progressed in my health journey, as I, just became more sensitive really. And then you actually feel the difference in your body between one and the other. But I just love that it can be so simple because my mom, she'll do the best she can, but she's just simple. She's just like, give me the beans, I'll eat the chicken, you
But
know.
she's a bean person now. That's
She's
so great.
totally a bean person now. She believes that beans helped her eliminate whatever was going on. And I do believe there was a profound emotional element in her experience and her kind of making peace with whatever was going on that was kind of blocking energy in her heart and her and her body's ability to heal itself and stuff. But yeah, she's absolutely 100% on board with beans, and now she diagnoses people in her life with beans. She's like, oh, she needs to eat beans. So, yeah.
Hey man, in the world, I don't. Well, actually, it's interesting because when you look at what how much fiber our ancestors ate, it was like 100 grams a day or something.
Mm.
And so most humans today maybe get 5 grams, 10 grams maybe. And so I was about to say, I don't know if our ancestors needed as much fiber as we do today, just because of all of the exposure and all of the whatever modern life. But in fact, they ate so much more. So who's to say that, you know, that we haven't always needed more fiber and just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Um, we are at the hour mark, which I try to usually make these inside of an hour.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want the bean community to know about your bean experience or
About
anything?
experience. Yeah, just stick with what you're doing, and see if you can be an ally to yourself, um, less judgmental, less assessing, and just supportive, and allow your body to take the time it takes. Don't um, try not to compare yourself to anyone else, because your experience and your healing is unique, and you will, yeah, you will heal.
Patience. Yeah, patience isn't, I talk about that muscle a lot because I see things as tools in our tool belt, and patience isn't one that everybody has. So to build that muscle of patience is an incredible asset on the journey of healing.
Thank you so much, Unique.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and you're an incredible warrior. So I know you're going to keep kicking ass in this world. Thank you.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Have a good Sunday.
You too.
Bye.